Welcome to the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast. In each episode, we're going to bring you insightful interviews and discussions with top restoration industry leaders. We're also going to delve into their business, the strategies that made them successful, and most importantly, the valuable lessons they've learned along the way. I'm your host, Clinton James. I'm also the Chief Marketing Officer at Water Restoration Marketing. We're a digital marketing agency dedicated to helping restoration companies nationwide secure more high-value water jobs. Now, this show, it aims to provide you with the knowledge and tools you need to excel in the restoration industry. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome, everybody, to a special episode of the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast. I'm your host, Clinton, of Water Restoration Marketing. I'm also joined today by Shawn Turano. Shawn, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Clinton.
Shawn is the owner of not just one business in the restoration space, but two businesses in the restoration space. The first being Contents Recovery Systems, which is a couple years old, and then his primary restoration business, which is Property Restoration Solutions. Did I say that right, Shawn?
You got it exactly. You could be my spokesman.
So, Shawn is actually a new client of my digital marketing agency, but in getting to know him and learning a little bit about these different businesses, I thought he'd be a great guest to talk a little bit about, obviously, his rise to success in the restoration space, but more importantly, what he's doing on the content side, because I feel like that's a really big missed opportunity for a lot of restoration companies that don't think they have the bandwidth to tap into making money and monetizing contents there. Shawn, before we get too deep in the weeds, why don't you give the audience a little background about yourself? What got you into the restoration industry in the first place?
You know, back in the day, back in 2001, I had a trade carpentry company that was doing very well. And when the trade center hit, everything stopped, right? No business was being conducted, except I noticed all these little trucks running around sucking water and putting out fires. And I realized that there's a big industry here that needs to be tackled. And obviously they have a revenue service that I needed to get involved with. So at that time, I just started doing a lot of research, started studying. I got involved with restoration under Service Master. And from there, I just blossomed as an estimator and just kept moving along. And I really enjoy this space. It's a nice industry to be in.
Awesome. Now, tell the audience where your restoration company is located and how long you've been in business.
So Property Restoration Solutions is in Colorado Springs, Colorado. We're located outside of Colorado Springs in Peyton, Colorado. We service the entire Front Range of Colorado. We have just started exploring the Silverthorne area, which is going to be our sister company coming up this year. And the company's taken off. I mean, we started doing mass production, marketing, and all of a sudden things started to happen. We ended up building a 3,000 square foot office and another 3,000 square foot warehouse where we, just started building in and putting more people to work. And then I did a lot of hurricane work. I started going off to do hurricanes, helping other companies do moisture mapping and getting involved with a little bit more of the catastrophe disaster. It was there was a real need there, right? You see a lot of things on TV, but until you're actually there, you don't understand it. And my calling was to go and help people, right? So I got involved with several coalitions and started doing some of that work. And meanwhile, I had a full-fledged company going on in Colorado, which is kind of hard, but we made it work. It wasn't until I started doing a lot of large loss dryouts and cleanups that I noticed a real missed opportunity with content. Contents became like the secondary almost nuisance to the industry where, people want to dry out buildings fast. They want to make that money. That's a great opportunity. But what they were doing to contents was a real bad situation for any homeowner or business owner. And I started noticing that there's something that we can do. Something needs to change in this industry. And I looked at these contents piled up in the middle of a floor of a church, and I realized just how poorly this industry has taken advantage of that situation where they're almost there's so much in the way that we're just going to pile them out of the way and concentrate on the structure. And I always tell people, a house is four walls and a roof. A home is what you fill it with. And so it became this real, love hate relationship with contents. I started seeing contents as hey, 5% of the market out there I compete with in contents. It's literally 5%. 95% of the companies out there compete with each other for that water damage. And so it was my goal at that time to produce something a little more efficient. And that's how I got involved with contents recovery systems.
All right. So obviously, restoration can be divided into a couple different buckets, right? So me and my team primarily focus on generating emergency water jobs for the restoration companies that we work with. So when we look at a water situation, I look at it as mitigation. I look at it as rebuild, and sometimes I'd have a little bit of a blind spot for contents, right? I just assume everybody takes the furniture out, sets it in the back lawn, and waits for the mitigation and reroll work to happen. But that's obviously that's not a good idea. And I think you're right. It's a missed opportunity for a lot of restoration companies to make some additional money. Now, I've always been concerned that if you're going to get into the content space, you need to have a significant sized warehouse to be able to house contents and actually be able to do any disinfecting work and things like that. So, tell me a little bit about like before you had the 3,000 square foot warehouse, how were you making that happen?
So contents, again, I didn't get involved with contents right away. I always, I saw the money in putting air movers and dehumidifiers. The contents I just farmed out to another company. And it wasn't until I started doing hurricane work when I developed it and patented a system that, I fell in love with. I started doing a lot of research on production of fire line systems for contents. The Fireline system is real simple. It's unpacking dirty contents, moving them through the disinfection line, and then boxing up, disinfected goods and invoicing. I mean, that's almost as important. I will tell you that, when we started producing our decontamination trailers, uh, it was kind of a scary time because I invested, well over $500,000 in just a few trailers to be produced. And it was kinda like, "Is it gonna work? Is it going to take off?" I'm just gonna put it out there and see what happens. I patented the system and, instantly started getting phone
All
calls.
right, so let's talk about contents recovery systems, all right? So this is a business that's only been around for a few years, and while you've got a seven-figure restoration business, this contents recovery systems, that's actually taken off for you. So for our audience that's not familiar with it, give them a breakdown exactly what contents recovery systems is.
So, a lot of folks out there are doing contents, okay? They're doing, boxed out of dirty contents, bringing it back to a warehouse, and unpacking dirty contents, putting it through the Fireline system, reboxing, as we spoke about. This system is a mobile decontamination trailer system that I patented. It's taking that Fireline system off to the actual address that we're of the project and producing those contents on site. The good part about it is, we're actually taking contents out of a building and they're going in dirty, they're coming out clean and going potentially right back into place where they used to be, or they're going into boxes to be, you know, produced off site. So it's a neat, it's kind of a fun system once I start to, show it and everybody's walking through it. We have clear walls, allowing people to see what's going on inside. And so when a homeowner sees that we're, grandma's old knickknacks are being produced and they're being boxed up and they're cleaner than they ever were when they came out of the assembly line. That's a big opportunity.
I like the visual of that. I can see myself coming home from the gym one afternoon if I had a neighbor that had water damage in their home and they've got this trailer that has clear walls and they're having their, the things they have in their home actually disinfected right there on site. Now you operate nationally because right now, even though your restoration company is based in Colorado, that's not where we're having this conversation from right
Right.
now. You are down in Southern California working with homeowners and businesses that were impacted by the fires there. So tell us a little bit about how Contents Recovery Systems operates nationally for you.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to do was make it so it could be tailored to do any type of disaster, whether it be, hurricane work, firework, wildfires, big, buildings, high rises that potentially took on fire and need those contents decontaminated. So it did go national. And right now I'm in Southern California after the Eaton fire, which is Altadena, and then the Pacific Palisades in Malibu area, which had the huge wildfires. Now, we use the word wildfire real loosely. This is more urban fire. This has more contaminants in it than what people actually see with soot, ash, and char. This brought in a lot of heavy metals. It brought in dioxins. It's got arsenic. We've got a lot of contamination that could potentially be harmful to people, especially those that are elderly, children, immune compromised. So the idea is to produce contents cleaner than when the fire happened. And that's important because, again, let's talk about the structure. If the structure is dirty, but the contents are clean, we've not done our job. And vice versa. If the contents are produced in a way that they're super clean, but the structure's, not up to par, that would be a conflict for a homeowner coming home, and then couple years down the road, they're sick. So we are doing both contents and structure cleans down here in Southern California, and we would do that naturally in hurricane zones as well.
So let's take the urban fires that you're going through right now. Can you think of another like national catastrophe that you were able to dispatch to? Talk a little about what you saw and talk about the opportunity that was there. Obviously, not only to help homeowners and business owners that were impacted, but also financially for you growing this new business.
Yeah, so we have been to several wildfires, which are urban fires in a sense. So now we've been through the LA fire here. We were in Boulder County in Colorado. That's pretty much the test subject for how these trailers operated, and the bigger conception was derived. We've been through Hurricane Laura in Louisiana. We were able to produce a lot of contents through there. So in the infancy of the company, we did, test drive it a little bit. And through the process, then I found little niches that needed to be cleaned up a little bit, and then patented that final product. And let me tell you, we've got the interest of a lot of folks out here who want to intercept the franchise. Right now, we're in the stage of franchising this business, and they want to intercept that. And it's an interesting thing because, you know, uh, these folks are seeing the benefit of having the contents produced on site, not boxing up dirty stuff, and actually producing more efficient, more productive work line systems.
Is there a way to treat contents on site, but maybe the mitigation work is not done, right? So we need to wait a day or two. If I'm a restoration business owner, I don't have the warehouse to house all of those contents necessarily. Is there an opportunity for me to have like a mobile storage unit on site there? So we use your system to clean the contents and then store it there locally on the homeowner's property until mitigation and rebuild work is completed.
That's a great question. I got to be honest with you. IICRC S320 and several other of the regulatory literature states that the contents are to be stored in climate controlled areas. We can't just put them in pods anymore and let them sit out in the sun and bake. So, and vice versa. We can't let, contents sit in a cold storage over the winter and allow them to, wood, for instance, will shrink and crack. Um, Metals will tarnish, things of that sort. So what we've done is there's two systems we can do. We can either unpack an entire garage, wrap it in, I'm sorry, clean it, then wrap it in 6 mil plastic and make that a big container. Then we make one point of egress for those contents to come in and out of. And now we've got ourselves a clean station for storage. Secondarily, we can park a box truck behind the trailer and actually ship that off to a climate controlled storage facility. And that actually is a nicer fit because now they're not in the way. They're also in a storage unit that has insurance. So if the house should burn up again, God forbid, those contents are gone, right? So if they're off site, they're now in the storage facility that is insured. There's a key, people watching, cameras watching, and that's a better fit anyway.
So that's a workaround for someone that doesn't have the facility necessary to store a great deal of contents, is that
It
for them
is.
to use a local, climate controlled storage area to actually park those contents once they treat them on site during the water, fire, whatever the instance is at the home there. Um, do you think that not thinking that through, do you think that not having the storage facility is really a reason that restoration companies often overlook contents as a potential revenue source?
I don't want to say that's a reason. I think that what they're used to doing the old fashioned way has inhibited them from thinking of it as a revenue source. Basically, the old way of doing things, it's hard to make money at producing contents, right? So the non-solved list may be this big, but the salvageability list is this big. We've reversed that. We've actually salvaged this much and non-solved is this much. So there is a greater return on revenue. And having this trailer system available, now we're more productive, right? So making money with the efficiency involved allows these restoration companies to produce things faster, more efficient, and we have more salvageability, right? So we're not storing things in a warehouse dirty, waiting for that next fire line system to come to life. They're actually being produced right there on site. So we're actually getting the soot and ash and contamination off these products faster, allowing them to be uh, decontaminated quicker, which is very important because this type of fire produces acidic material, and a lot of these contaminants will bed themselves into that material. So the faster you get them off, the quicker it or the more efficient it's going to be able to salvage those items. It becomes very critical. Time is not your friend in this situation.
Your system is really a disruptor to the restoration industry. So how do you go about educating, whether it's the insurance carrier, the homeowner, a restoration company that's considering investing in your system there?
Well, it's a no-brainer, all right? You park this thing in front of someone's home or business, the whole neighborhood comes to life. They wanna know why their house is being treated like this, but mine didn't, right? We get this every single day. It's kinda like the marketing tool, and I gotta be honest, it's been awesome. Right? And so when we get homeowners coming over and they're knocking on the side of the trailers and, "Yeah, come on in, check out your neighbor's stuff." It's a lot of fun to explain to them why it's important to do it this way, okay? And why a cleaning going on in your garage with dirty air and dirty water is not going to work, for your content specifically. And the insurance company, if there is insurance coverage, insurance companies love this system. We have calls from adjusters coming in right now because they realize that the less they have to replace, the more that we salvage, the smaller the claim. I mean, think about how good that is to the insurance industry.
How many of these units do you have throughout the US right now?
We have 6 units, right now. We're in production of another 10. Hopefully by the end of this year, they'll be ready to go. But we're producing 1 home, about 45 to 5,000 square feet every week, and that's pretty incredible, turnover. When you consider the numbers that we have to work with, Xactimate's are a good friend. Okay, so it really is. A lot of people shy away from it. They want to do time and material. That's fine. You can do it your way. Xactimate's good because it has 15,000 line items in it just for contents. I love the system, buddy. And Xactimate now has content track, which has an identifier. It's an AI driven system as an identifier of the items that we're trying to produce. So it has a tracking system it takes in the image of what we are photographing, and it'll look at it and say, okay, that's a chair. Okay, that's a table. That's an end table. It's a pretty incredible system. So we're working well with them.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about what's on the horizon next for contents recovery systems. Is it the franchise model? Is it you're just going to keep these all to yourself and then dispatch whenever there's a national emergency? What are you thinking here, Sean? Share a little bit with our audience.
Well, obviously the franchise lawyers want me to just, go full out and go franchise. Of course. We have several contractors around the country who are first in line ready to take this thing on. However, I do have interceptors, and again, numbers talk. It's a concept that a lot of people, would say, well, depending on the amount of money, I think I would probably sell out. My thing is, though, I really think as a franchise, there's a bigger audience and it could be broadcast more readily around the country. Think about 20 franchises around the country dispatching to one location to help out after a hurricane or a wildfire situation. That's actually a better opportunity than, say, one owner in Southern California who then has to dispatch all the way to Louisiana or things of that sort. So
100%.
I'm doing some thinking and I'm working on, the
You're doing more than thinking. You're doing math at this point, Sean. You're seeing what is going to set you up to grow not only the contents recovery systems business, but also property restoration solutions out in Colorado. I don't think that thing's going anywhere either, right? So going through this entrepreneurial journey that you've had, specifically in restoration, let's talk about some takeaways because some of my audience members, they haven't been in restoration for a decade, right? They're just getting started on their entrepreneurial adventure in restoration. Um, take your put your memory cap on, if you will, and go back to when you originally started your restoration business. What advice would today's Sean give to then Sean in terms of breaking into the restoration business and having success?
I'm so glad you brought that up. It's interesting. When I first started Property Restoration Solutions, I think everybody in this industry probably they started sucking water with, something simple like a mobile unit or something. They had one wand, they had probably a dozen fans and a dehumidifier. They went to town and they started making a little money. What happened though for me is I started that way, but I always thought that, there's the competition out there, right? And a mom and pop shop's not going to make it too long if you don't keep up with the trend. And I found that technology was outpacing my company. And we no longer have that. Technology has been implemented into both my businesses, but it's the shock and awe value. When I walk in with a thermal imaging camera or I walk in with a man report, these are the technological things that we bring that differentiate our companies from others, So the advice I would give is invest in education for what? Don't just go to water class and say, I'm going to go suck water. Because you'll get yourself in trouble. For one, you don't recognize Cat 3 versus Cat 1 sometimes, and that will get you in trouble.
Also lose you some money. Cat through was 3 times as profitable.
It's a liability issue. I'm not concerned about money at that point.
For sure.
But, most of all, reinvest in the company. Reinvest at least 30% of your revenue back into the company and build the thing so that it's sustainable over time. We've been approached by many companies wanting to purchase our company simply because we're making an impact. You could literally build a restoration company in 3 years to the point of selling out for $5 million. I mean, that's the advantage you have in this industry. So, future advice for all those out there: invest in technology and education.
Okay. What do you see as the biggest challenges for folks that are in the restoration industry right now?
Hiring people,
Okay.
to be honest with you, getting people to show up weekly, incentivizing employees to show up, um, producing the proper, not just code of conduct, policy and procedure, all of the things that make a good company stand out versus the others. Uh, it is tough. The hiring of people has become so, um, it's become very difficult. I just can't even begin to tell you.
It's interesting because I work with over 130 restoration companies right now, and usually it's culture that is the thing that probably has some of the biggest impacts in terms of who's growing and who's not growing, right? The owners that I tend to get along with that have a growth mindset, that I know just based on the conversations I've had with them and their team, they've really created a great culture. They're not the ones that consistently pause their ad campaigns because they just lost 2 or 3 technicians to the guy down the street there. Where are you having the most success hiring new technician, whether it's water techs or front office staff?
I would say incentivizing. Let's say it's kind of like a dog. You don't beat them. You incentivize them to do better. So what I'm gonna do is, you do a great job. You close out that project. You get a certificate of completion, and it's gone well. And we're paid. I'm gonna give you a percentage of that job every single time, and we're gonna penalize for certain things that are not done well. But we're also going to re-educate, in certain instances. So uh, yeah, I would say that incentivizing them to do great and do better every single time is going to get you a long ways in this industry.
Awesome. Awesome. How many team members do you have with the restoration business, and how many team members do you have with the contents business?
The contents company, we have about 75 now,
Okay.
and we have about a dozen people in the restoration company at home. And so our set of 75 people here, each trailer occupies about 12 to 15 people, plus our supervisors and then our sales managers, and their estimators, obviously. So there's a lot of people and a lot of moving parts, and the buck stops with me every single time. So it's a lot of hats, and there's no time to be off at any given moment.
Well, my hope is to generate some additional restoration business for the Colorado folks so you can go from 12 to 15 to 20 team members out there and
Absolutely.
continue to help grow. I'm super excited to work with you. I appreciate you sharing your insights with our audience here. I know there's some people probably chomping at the bit listening to this conversation, wanting to get on that list of contractors when you guys do decide that you want to go into the franchise model with contents recovery systems. Um, do we let them know how to reach you? Should we give them the website address? Should I drop it in the show notes? What do you think,
That would
Sean?
be
I don't
fun.
want you inundated with a bunch of restoration companies that want to get involved.
I can handle it.
All right,
Trust.
give the audience the website for contents recovery systems.
Website for that is www.contentsrecovery.ux. And our phone number is 1-877-719-1699. Guys, I'm available any time of day, so feel free to call.
I appreciate it, Sean. We'll drop that information in the show notes or in the podcast description for everybody to be able to get. Again, I really appreciate you taking some time, especially considering where you're at right now and the kind of work that you're doing. Appreciate it. Looking forward to a long-term working relationship with you and my agency. Audience, if you like what you heard today, interviews with folks like Sean, great insight, stuff to really help you level up your restoration business. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, comment, and share. So thank you, Sean. And to our audience, thanks for sticking around. We want you to go out there, stay safe, stay dry, and always stay busy. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast. If you like what you heard today, be sure to subscribe, share, and also leave us a 5-star review. We'll be back with more interviews and discussions with restoration industry leaders really soon. In the meantime, if you're a restoration company looking to add more high-value water jobs, you can reach me and my team at waterrestorationmarketing.net. Again, that's waterrestorationmarketing.net. I look forward to hearing from you soon.